October, and it's Transport Month, and we're looking closely into the state of public transport in South Africa. As you know, growing calls for the public transport sector to come up with new ways to reduce road fatalities and perhaps better service. Well, three of our reporters embarked on our very own eNCA Mzansi Race today, travelling from the Mandela House in Orlando West in Soweto all the way to the Mandela statue at the Union Buildings in Pretoria. As the crow flies, a distance of around 82 kilometres an hour, all using different modes of transport to identify with the different challenges related to public transport in the country. Well, we're going to set this up for you, then they're all back, and we're going to talk to them about their experience.
Today is the big race for us, and I am joined by my colleagues. In fact, I am here with Masego Rahlaga as well as Aviwe Mtila, and I am actually Team Taxi. And this is one of the most common forms of public transport that South Africans use on a daily basis, and also one of the most affordable, in fact, in this economy. And as you would know, that with petrol prices increasing, that in turn increases taxi fares. So we are in the south of Johannesburg, here on Vilakazi Street, just outside Mandela House, and this is our starting point for the race. We are 77 kilometers away from the Union Buildings, which is our end point. So I'm going to bring in Masego, who is Team Car. Masego, are you ready? Do you know what route you're going to take?
I'm ready, Slee. The only thing is that I'm definitely not using the M2 because that's the route that's being fixed, so I expect a lot of traffic. I'll be using car, like you said, and here are my keys. I've even got the company petrol card. But you know, my clutch foot is going to be very painful the whole morning, so I'm definitely using another route, probably the N12 going into the N1. That will probably be the best, but I'll be there in approximately an hour, 15 minutes, so I'm assuming I'll be there before both of you.
We'll see. I'm going to bring in Aviwe. Aviwe, what mode of transport are you using, and how long do you think it's going to take you?
Actually, they call it Istimela, so that is basically a train. I'll be in a train. Excited about it. Not quite sure how it operates. I've never really been on a train. It's going to be my first train ride. So something definitely to look forward to. As you said, 77 Ks away from the Union Buildings. Yeah. I don't know what to expect. I literally don't know what to expect.
All right. Okay, so, Xoli, we're ready. I've got my backpack. I think I've got around 250 Rand for my colleague Lebo and I to take the taxi. So I'm going to hand over to our producer, Gloria, who's going to count us down.
So, racers, are you ready?
Ready.
Team Car, are you ready?
I am ready.
Team Taxi, are you ready?
I'm ready, honey. I'm ready.
Stimela Team, Stimela Train, are you ready? Race safe. Now in 3, 2, 1, go!
And suddenly they're back, okay? So I have to say this. Aviwe, you looked nervous. Slee, you just looked like you'd gone through a lot of Duracell batteries.
Yeah.
I wasn't quite sure. You looked a little bit nervous. But it was an interesting experiment nonetheless, because we were testing. This is transport that people use all the time. So what's the experience like? But more interestingly, productivity. I made the point at the beginning of the show that if you had to get from Soweto to Pretoria today on a job, you would have been shot out the water. So let's talk about experiences first. Aviwe, seriously? First time on a public train?
My first time, indeed, and I pray it was my last time. Public trains are really horrible, just to put it mildly.
Define the commuter experience.
Going in, firstly, you don't know. There are no notices, there are no signs. You don't get direction as to when are the trains, the schedules they're supposed to leave. So we waited for about 30 minutes for a train to come through. Going inside that train, of course, it was full. Everyone was up against each other, and I was warned by the people around me to safeguard my belongings because there's a lot of pickpocketing. It's normal. It happens there normally. But what was really concerning for me was the doors, Jeremy. They were left open, the doors, and the school children, they're going to school, dropping off at the various stations. So those doors anything could happen because they were right up against them while the train was...
4 hours, am I right? From Soweto to Pretoria.
4 hours to Union Buildings. From Soweto to Malong Station, it took a good 4 hours.
Masego, I think we should have handicapped you. In retrospect, what we should have done is we said you have to stop for breakfast somewhere, because you beat the taxi by an hour and 15 minutes?
Yeah, about an hour and 15 minutes.
But you still had to deal with congestion?
Yes, and it's too late, Jeremy. I won.
Yeah.
Look, the car experience is obvious. It's more expensive because you have more petrol to put into your tank. There's also wear and tear. There's also, the service that you have to have on your car. There's a whole lot that comes into actually owning a car. So it's more expensive, but it's more convenient. I definitely did come into congested traffic, and I did see Slee's friends driving onto the yellow lane, but I was very excited when I saw a police officer stopping them.
So what happened?
Listen, Jeremy, I think anybody who uses taxis on a daily basis knows exactly the kind of experience that I just had today. And I've been using taxis for most of my life as well, but I've never really taken a taxi where I've had to connect so many times. I actually found it quite unreasonable that somebody who lives in Soweto is expected to take at least 3 taxis to get to the Pretoria CBD. There should at least be maybe one connection.
Where was your block point? Where was it most difficult to reconnect?
So it wasn't difficult to connect. It was actually difficult to leave Soweto. I struggled to find a taxi to the Johannesburg.
To find, or were you queuing?
No, I had to find one. I had to walk. So we started at Mandela House, but I had to walk down Vilakazi Street at least a kilometer to where there's a point where the Johannesburg CBD taxis are found.
See, if you'd run that kilometer instead of walking, you might have won.
And the expense, it's 75 Rand just for a single trip to Pretoria.
What did the entire trip cost you?
Between me and my colleague Lebu, it cost us 150 Rand.
Okay, what did you work out the petrol cost?
Well, it was almost 1,000 Rand that we poured into the tank, but
obviously you've still got, and you had to come back.
Yeah, we've still got a lot of petrol left.
Definitely in that part of the race, I won 19 Rand from Soweto to Bosman train station in Pretoria.
Right, very quickly, because we need to move on. You've told us what needs to be improved. Door safety is an issue. On the roads, what needs to improve?
We need to have more routes, definitely, Jeremy, because, we all know Johannesburg and Gauteng are very congested, so we need to have more routes, first of all, to get to different places. You cannot only have 2 or 3 options to actually get from Johannesburg to the Pretoria CBD. So that would be one thing that I say needs to change.
Definitely less connections in terms of taxi associations. I think need to work better together in order to ensure that commuters can get to different cities without it taking 3 hours.
You haven't asked me what you've won.
What?
Why?
She won something. You didn't say there was a prize, Jeremy.
Did I win a
Competition.
car?
You don't win a car. Days leave, all right.
Oh.
There you go. Okay. Thanks, guys.
You heard it.
Don't look so excited.